Hey y'all, I get asked about my flow equipment all the time, so I thought I would do a video kind of showing the difference between a flow hive and a standard Langstroth hive that both beginning beekeepers and established beekeepers could understand and appreciate, really showing the differences and the pros and cons between both styles of hives. I thought I would literally start at the bottom, so we'll start with the bottom boards and move on our way up. So this is the flow bottom board, and I've picked a Langstroth bottom board that's the most similar, so I could kind of compare them apples to apples. These are both a screened bottom board. On Langstroth equipment, a solid bottom board is also an option, which is really just a solid version of this. So the flow bottom board has this braided wire base, and this Langstroth one has a screened base. They both have a angled landing board. And the nice thing about this is, in theory anyway, it should help keep rain from entering the hive. And as you can see on this other bottom board, and to be honest, most of my hives use these, but this is just completely flat. So this is a feature that Flow has worked to put in. And there's a whole discussion on screened versus solid bottom boards, but Flow uses a screened bottom board. So we're going to start with that for our comparison hive. Now, in the standard Langstroth hive, most of the time these will have a tray made out of corrugated plastic. This one has a wood tray, and you can put pest control, or it'll give you an idea of things that are coming out of the hive to help you diagnose the health of the hive. It's removable. Some people take them out completely for ventilation in the warmer months. And on the flow hive, it has a similar feature. This one actually has a little door back here, so you can take this little door off. And I didn't realize this at first, but these little ventilation spots, if you install this with those facing up, the idea is it's going to help air come in and ventilate the back of the hive. And then if you install it this way, upside down, these are going to be lower and just into the bottom of the tray and not help ventilate the hive so much. I think this is kind of a gimmick. I don't think that this is really going to make a big difference. One of the other little cool things about this, though, is it has this little level, and unfortunately the sun takes the fluorescence out of the level liquid pretty quickly, but it still works in there, so I can check without getting another level out to see if this hive is level. And you do want your hives to be at least close to level to help the bees not build comb quite so crazy. Oh, but then once you take this out, instead of a flat board or a piece of corrugated plastic, the Flow hive, and this is the upgraded hive, this is the Flow, I think it's the Flow 2, and I think they still have a Classic, which does not have this, but this is the plastic tray inside. Mine did break, I think even before I got bees in here, just with me kind of carrying it around. So that's something to kind of take note of. Most of the stuff is really high quality, but I was surprised that this broke quickly. So this tray has little compartments, and you could put diatomaceous earth or some other pest control in there. It's not really part of my beekeeping to do a lot of pest control on my bottom boards. So these are not huge features for me, but they might be for you. Another thing I wanted to note is I have generic ant guards on both of these. When I ordered my Flow equipment, they were out of the Flow ant guards. They look really nice. They're really expensive. I believe they also do some leveling, which would be nice. These generic ones do not do leveling. So in my apiary, most of my leveling is done with wood shims. And it is nice and clean if you're able to do it right here on the feet. So starting with the foundation, both of these are really pretty similar. We've got a screened bottom board here and a screened bottom board here. So for now, these hives are really pretty identical, just different brand equipment really. On top of this, we will put the first box, which will be the brood box, and that just means where they're raising their brood, their young. These are 10 frame boxes. I like to keep everything the same just to make my life a little bit easier. So I got the 10 frame deep Flow equipment, and here is a 10 frame deep standard Langstroth box. So right now, both of these hives are Langstroth hives with one brood box. And when you first get your bees, whether it's a nucleus or a package, they will live in just this bottom box to get started with, because the 2 boxes is just too much space for a new colony. But what you'll do, and you have to assemble all of this, the bottom board, the box, these frames, all of these come in different pieces, both from Flow and just about anybody else. And here's one of the Flow frames, and I can tell it's a Flow frame because they included these pretty gold nails. Usually when I buy frames, they don't include nails, which is fine. I just use my staple gun for those. But I thought it was nice that they put a little touch like that in there. I am not using foundation, but if you do use foundation, the Flow frames come with this piece that you can use or not use. If you have it installed, the bees should build comb right on here. It should be installed tighter than that where you can't pull it out. And if you use foundation, it has the grooves on both the top if you pull this out, and the bottom, so that you can put a foundation in there. So these are nice, versatile, standard frames. I'm gonna leave this out for now, so I need to repair that anyway. So we've got 10 frames in here, and then we've got 10 frames in here. And what'll happen is that the bees will come in and build out all this wax by themselves, and it looks really nice and bright whitish yellow, creamy when they first build it, and then when it's been used for a while, it gets darker just from use, especially in the brood box where they're raising their young. There's just a lot of activity in here. So you'll install your bees in here and wait for them to build out all of this comb. So we're not going to add the next box until they're ready to build comb into the next box. So on both hives, when we have a new package, now I think this, I'm stopping on this because I think that a lot of new beekeepers don't know about this when they're looking at the Flow equipment and are expecting to put this big pretty box on there right away, and you don't. You're going to put your new package or nuke of bees in these brood boxes, no matter which style of or brand of hive you have, until they get these bottom boxes ready and filled out. So after your new package is installed, the next thing you do is install the inner cover. And this is the Flow inner cover. It was used for a little bit, so it's got a little bit of use showing here. The reason that it's not in use right now is it came apart. So this has been up for repair that I just haven't gotten to. I think that kind of sucks for what I paid for the hive, but honestly, woodworking has been much more integral in beekeeping than I thought it was going to be, so I guess I'm kind of used to that by now. So here's the Flow inner cover, and we can just put that right on top. It basically kind of creates an attic space between the boxes where the bees live and the roof. The Flow is the only inner cover I've ever had that came with this cover, this little lid. So if you don't want the bees to come up there, you can put that on there. And I have a lot of different styles of inner covers, and my favorite ones are in use, but this one is a nice, pretty basic one. So here's another style of inner cover from another brand, and it has the hole in the middle. And the reason that they have a hole is both for ventilation and for feeding. I use these holes for feeding, so on most of my covers I've added extra holes for ventilation. So that's what those are. I think a lot of beekeepers would complain about this inner cover not having the ventilation, because most will either have some sort of hole here that can be used as an entrance or for ventilation, or a little groove where the bees can still get in, or if you flip it over, it's for ventilation. I don't use top entrances. I don't know if you can see on this one, I have this screened up. And the Flow people apparently don't believe in second entrances either. So after you get your new bees in there, we do the inner cover, and then of course on top of the inner cover is the roof. And here's the Flow roof. It has a little groove for when you're using it with the harvester box, but when you're putting it on just the regular box, it doesn't make a big difference which side it goes onto. It will when we put it on the other box. So these do fit nice and tight, and you can tighten this here. I usually don't, but you can tighten this down if you want to make this nice and locked together. I don't know if you've seen pictures of other beekeepers where they have tie downs wrapped around their hive, but the idea here is if you tighten these screws, the lid's not, at least the lid's not going to come off. So on the other hive, we've got the inner cover, and you can buy nice, pretty gabled lids for any Langstroth equipment. They're a lot more expensive, so I have all of these just economy lids with the metal top. I like these a lot. They're really practical. They're not as pretty as the flow roof, but they do a great job of keeping the elements out and the bees safe and protected in there. So no matter what brand of Langstroth you get, which really a flow hive is a style of Langstroth hive, this is what the new hive looks like. I've seen comments online where people are like, that's not a flow hive, it doesn't have the flow box on it. But these are both started hives that are not ready for a honey super, which is the box that goes on top where the bees will build out the honey. Another thing that you'll want to have on your hives is an entrance reducer. So what happens is this is an enormous entrance, especially for a new colony that only has 3 to 5 pounds of bees. A standard Langstroth entrance reducer, it has a tiny 1 to 2 bee hole size, and then it has a wider one. And the idea is you just put that on there on either size that you want, and the entrance is buckled down so the bees have a lot less space to guard. The flow one, and I've modified this box a little bit. I'll talk about that a little bit later. The flow entrance reducer is meant to be screwed into your box here. And there are 2 other little pieces that I don't have. I couldn't find them because, to be honest, I don't like this entrance reducer, so I don't use it. I like everything to be standard to make my life a little bit easier. The easier it is on me, really the easier it is on the bees. So I don't use this, and I lost the other pieces, and that is why I ended up modifying my flow bottom board, because I wanted to be able to use the standard entrance reducers. And since this is a slanted bottom board, when you just put one of these on here, it'll never line up quite right on the top. So what I've done is I sanded it down right here, and I actually went all in here and lowered this tray and flattened the front lip on the tray. It was a ton of work, but I was really irritated, so that this hive can also take a standard entrance reducer. So in hindsight, I would have thought twice about this if I knew that it wasn't going to fit a standard entrance reducer, because it's not just about this piece. It's also about any other entrance accessories if you want to put on there, like robber screens or pollen traps. It's really nice if everything can just be standard. So that is a flow hive and a Langstroth hive. They're really identical at this stage. It's once you get ready to harvest honey that things change a little bit. So when you're ready to harvest honey, when you're ready to let the bees start building in a honey super, not harvest, of course the lid and the inner cover will come off. No more lid, no more inner cover. And this is another thing that I've seen a lot of new beekeepers just not really know about. So to keep, I showed you this comb that has been, this is brood comb, so it's been used for a few years, and it gets real dirty and nasty like that. You don't want the honey comb to be like that. So what we have as beekeepers is a queen excluder. And this is a pretty standard metal one. They come in plastic, they come in metal, and then they come in wood bound. And I picked this one because it was the closest to the one that I think came with my flow hive. But what you do here is you just put this queen excluder on top of the hive, on top of the brood box. And what this does is these little grooves in here are big enough so that a regular worker bee can fit through, but the queen bee cannot. So what that does is that keeps the queen bee, who's laying eggs in the brood box for the nurse bees to raise. And we're going to keep her down there in the brood box and not allow her to come up into the honey boxes where we're going to be, we're going to have our bees making honey for us. So the next box is the honey super. So for this hive, the standard Langstroth, it's just another box identical to the bottom one with more frames. So these are empty frames right now. They haven't been used yet. But when they are used, this one's been used, the bees will start building out this comb and fill it with honey. Or you can use foundations in honey supers also, unless you use the Flow honey super. So here's the Flow honey super, and this is the really exciting part from Flow. One little gripe, it has a handle on the back. It has no handles on the side, and there's no handle on the front except for this little cabinet style knob. When this thing's heavy, that's going to be hard for me. We haven't come to that yet. So when you're ready to go into honey production mode, you can add these top boxes. I've added this box backwards so that you can see it from the camera. Normally on a flow hive, your honey harvesting side will be on the back, on the opposite side of the entrance. So when you go to harvest that, you're not in the bees' business taking up space. You're back here out of their way. But for the camera, I'm going to show it to you this way. So this is really the same as having the brood box, then on top of this box, which the queen cannot get in, only the worker bees, we're going to put back on our inner covers. And outer covers, roofs, lids, all of that works here. So now these hives look different because the flow hive, aside from having the pretty roof, has the honey harvester on top, where the Langstroth has just a standard box that we're going to use for honey. So this is really, I think people think flow hive versus Langstroth hive, and really they're the same hive. They're both Langstroth hives. What's different is when I go to harvest out of this hive, I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to pull out these frames full of honey, and I'm going to take them up to my garage and use equipment I have up there to get the honey out, which is a lot for the bees because I'm going to be really messing with this box. But I don't think it's as big of a deal as Flow makes it out to be, because what I'll do before I harvest honey out of this box is use a chemical bee repellent to get them down into the bottom box and out of my way. Maybe that is more stress on the bees, but I'm going to do that in this box also. In either box, before you harvest honey, you're still going to be pulling the frames out. So you just saw me pull one out of the standard Langstroth hive, and you still need to do that in this box. So before you harvest honey, you will need to pull one of these flow frames out and check and make sure that the whole thing is honey. Because what will happen is they'll start making honey in one area. This honey will finish before this newer nectar out here that has not been allowed to be made into finished honey yet. So you need to check and make sure that all of the honey is capped, both on these frames and on these frames, before you harvest. I don't know if it's just their marketing or kind of the way we think about it. We think that the flow hive is just going to kind of take beekeeping out of beekeeping, and it doesn't. So in this hive and in that hive, they both get exactly the same number of inspections. I still need to put on a bee suit and open up the hive to check the health of the hive and look at the brood health, the laying pattern for the queen, and I still have to know about beekeeping and understand all those things to be able to do that. So the difference isn't in beekeeping methods. The beekeeping method with the flow hive is really the same as any other Langstroth hive. The difference really is when we go to harvest. So when we harvest, you've seen, I imagine, on the marketing where this piece comes out, so you don't even have to take the roof off, and you put the little keys in there, and then the little tubes go in here where you can get the honey out. Now, you should level both hives, front and side, front to back and side to side before you put bees in. When you're harvesting out of this box, and this is backwards, so normally you'll raise the front a little bit. I think if you use the flow feet, they have some way to raise that really quick. What I do is I just get a little board that's kind of basically this width, like a little 1x2, and stick it under there. So you don't need those special feet, but you know, I appreciate the Flow put a complete system together. And this is a nice little window when there's actually bees in there. I think that more manufacturers should include windows. There's a lot of discussion about moisture and windows having a problem with that. And I haven't actually seen that because these Flow hives also have windows on the side here too, so that you can see a little peek inside the hive. And I've not had moisture issues with this. Now, I don't know if you noticed this flow box is completely immaculate. I have two of these. This one didn't get used because the hive that I intended to put this on wasn't ready to become a honey harvesting hive last year. I installed them in March and they just didn't get built up enough to be ready to harvest honey. So this box never went on that hive. It stayed one box. And this year, I'm looking forward to putting this on there and harvesting out of it. And I think that's important to know, is that it's not always going to be the big pretty marketing display. I think what some people do is they'll take the inner cover and put it down here where I have the queen excluder right now, just so you can have it be a pretty showpiece, but that doesn't really benefit the bees at all, so it's not really something that I do. So I showed you my little gripe with the bottom board and how I had to modify it to make it fit really standard with the rest of my equipment, including my entrance reducers and robbing screens and things. So I just wanted to show you kind of a couple other things that you may not really know about the Flow Hive, because I wish I did. Now, while these are standard boxes, if I buy any other 10 frame deep box from any other manufacturer, it fits really nice on my other boxes. But when it comes to this Flow equipment, it doesn't quite play nicely like that. So I'll use the inner cover as an example here. You can see how there's kind of a big space here. Like it's probably a solid ½ inch difference in the width of this box. And I have the similar difference front to back also. So there's I think a milling difference between the Australian lumber and the American lumber that creates this problem. I'll show it to you on both here. So if I put this regular box, and I have multiple brands of boxes, they all fit together except for my Flow boxes. These boxes are a little bit bigger, both on the side and front to back. So here's Flow equipment on top. It's a little bit smaller. This box is a little bit bigger. So what happens is whenever I go to assemble anything with the Flow equipment and any other brand, it doesn't play nice. I have a problem with that, and I wish I had known that when I bought the Flow equipment, because you can choose to just buy the Flow harvester and the Flow frames and fit them in a standard box, which in the future is probably the way I'm going to do it. The other problem that I run into, and I showed you how this one doesn't have handles, this bottom box has handles on the front and back. It does not have handles on the side. That's not a huge gripe for me, but it is nice to be able to pick these up this way when I want to. So this gorgeous roof won't fit on any of my other equipment either. It'll only fit on the flow boxes. If I go to put this, it's the same, it fits tightly, where my standard outer covers don't fit tightly. This one fits really tightly on top of the box, so it'll never actually go on there. We're looking at modifying this so that it can, but again, why should I have to modify equipment that I really paid a premium for? So I think that sucks. I do like how Flow has installed windows and have a really cool harvesting system. I just wish that they were thinking about standardizing with everybody else, because there are a lot of times when you might want to customize your equipment. I customize my inner covers a lot. That's a strong preference that I have, and I want to be able to do that. It makes it a lot harder when things are kind of proprietary sizes. But there is the difference between the Flow Hive and the standard Langstroth. I think, again, it's just really important to understand that the beekeeping practice is really the same. It's the harvesting that's different between the two. And I am going to keep using both styles of equipment. I'm not going to order any more Flow boxes since they don't play nice with the Man Lake and all the other brands I have. These are Pura. Like, I have all different brands. They all play nice together, except for the Flow. I do like all the innovations and things that are coming out in beekeeping lately, so I will keep trying them. I think that's important to know. You're never going to find complete information online because everybody has so many opinions, and really the best way to find out if you like something is to buy it and try it. Short of that, you should ask someone who actually uses the equipment. I've seen a lot of people who don't have Flow equipment trash Flow equipment online, and I don't think you can really understand it well enough until you own it and try it. So I have some other equipment that I bought one of to try and ended up not liking it at all. I am still using my Flow equipment. I just wish that the boxes played nice. So I hope that helps y'all make decisions if you want to buy any Flow equipment or try a Flow Hive. If you do really, really love the Flow system, you might want to go with all Flow boxes so they play nice. Or you might want to do what I was talking about, and they have plans online where you can buy just these frames, and they have directions online to convert a regular empty bee box into a Flow box. Another thing is, I don't know if you've noticed how much thicker these are. You can only fit 7 of these in a 10 frame box, so it'll fit 10 regular frames or 7 Flow frames, and that's just because these are a lot thicker. But supposedly the bees fill them up with more honey per cell, so it all works. So there, y'all have it. Information from someone who actually uses Flow equipment on some pros and cons and how it all works. Definitely try to find some time to really just try this equipment yourself, and I wish y'all all luck. See you next time.